All right, so the DCEU is something that we've talked about several times on the channel. Not in a while, though.
It's been a bit.
But you know why that is?
No.
Because it's such a weird, like, all over the place, don't really know what they're doing with it product. Even when it's good. Even when it's good. It seems like the overarching thing and the overarching issue is they didn't really have, like, a good plan in place when they started.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point now where it's people are literally just they go to the theater and it's, please don't be Suicide Squad. Don't be terrible.
And yet there's a group of people who love Suicide Squad.
Yes. Oh yeah. But the vast majority of people are really just hopeful that things aren't bad and they're good enough to bring people to the theater and so it doesn't get horrible reviews and so that they can justify still making DC movies.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what's so difficult, I guess, to really get into it, because Marvel's got a system down where, I mean, every movie feels like it's a guaranteed $1 billion is what it feels like at this point. At least a guaranteed $750 million. Where with this, I mean, Aquaman just passed $1 billion, and I think it's right around $1 billion worldwide. And it's,
yeah, last time I looked at it, it was at 800 million, but that was days ago.
Gotcha. So yeah, it must have done it then, and it's the highest grossing DCEU movie of all time. That's everyone that they've done so far.
And it's so weird to me because, like, I'm not being negative about Aquaman, but I'm just surprised because, like, it's a character no one ever cared about. No one liked.
Was a meme for the longest time.
It is a meme still
currently
in a
meme.
lot of ways. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to be negative. Aquaman is a movie I don't really care about. It's not that I'm opposed to seeing it. It's just like I've seen too many superhero movies to the point where, like, I don't really want to see them if they don't look unique to me. And it's not that Aquaman doesn't look good.
Right.
It's that it doesn't look unique or special in any way to me. And maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like very much a stereotypical superhero movie with, you know, it doesn't seem like it does a lot to break that mold.
And I did see it, not to make it an Aquaman review. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a fun, cartoony, it knows what it is, it just kind of enjoys what it is, I guess, throughout, if that makes sense. It's a very self-conscious movie. It knows exactly what it wants to do. It's fun. I mean, the effects and the CGI in this movie are unbelievable. If anything else, like, if there are complaints about anything else, the CGI is incredible. What they did with the water, everything. But like I said, and obviously not to make this a review, but I mean, they have sharks with lasers on it. It's a very fun,
silly movie,
and that's fine, and it's done well.
Oh yeah, that's totally fine. I think what I mean too is not that I won't ever see it.
Right.
It's that I'm not in a rush to run to a theater to watch Aquaman.
Right.
Because of how many of these movies I've seen. So, like, there are some interesting superhero movies I want to see. I will say Captain Marvel may not break any molds either. I don't really know. But the reason that I am interested in that is because it ties so heavily into Endgame. And Avengers Infinity War was a pretty revolutionary thing.
Totally different, yeah.
And felt like very much like they knew what they were doing. They cared about it. This is Marvel, obviously, but everyone should know that. So it's just difficult for me to justify, like, going to see something when it's not that. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I agree.
Because I feel the same way about, like, I want to see Glass.
Yes.
And the reason I want to see that is because Unbreakable is very much like in a lot of ways, a proto-superhero thriller movie, origin movie, and then Split is a horror movie.
Yes.
And then Glass marries those two films together into, like, a conclusion of this, like, cinematic universe. And it's just a trilogy. Maybe they'll do more eventually, but that's all it is for now. I like how small it is. It's smaller scale. It's more relatable characters in a lot of ways. Kind of like what you've said about Marvel, like how they're more believable characters and not as much, like, you know, over-the-top caricatures that are sometimes in the DCEU. So it's like I want to see that because it looks unique and it's smaller and it's not such a huge investment in 50 films to see.
Right.
And now, like, with the DCEU, there's all this stuff like, is Ben Affleck still Batman? Which I like his Batman, but we don't know if he is. Even with this stuff about the Batman, which is one of the reasons we were making this. They said it'll probably film in 2020 or 2019. We still don't have a cast. But like, who's Batman? Is it still Ben Affleck? I don't know.
We don't know.
Nobody seems to know.
Well, and that's the thing that I guess that's frustrating. That I think DC could have taken the template of at least parts of the template from Marvel and still been DC. So, like, for example, how once Marvel got a feel that they could make something big, could make this huge universe, they signed all of their guys to these massive contracts.
Yep.
I mean, who's the guy that plays Captain America again?
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. He signed like an 8-movie contract after the first Captain America, I think, or at least after it was around the Avengers, around that, the first phase. They signed him to these long-term deals because they had these long plans and they knew what they wanted to do. They had a plan and they invested in that overarching plan. DC just kind of started with Justice League almost, is what they did. Man of Steel and then Batman vs Superman essentially with Suicide Squad, and then jumped into this big thing. And it's just, it feels like they're forcing these big montages at the audience without really having a plan, without really having, like, not to be like a pun, but like an end game, like really having like
you see that in Justice League.
Yes.
The fact that it was so rushed, like it had 2 movies ahead of it. One was an actual like standalone movie, like Man of Steel, could have existed on its own. You could have done nothing more if you really wanted to, and it would have worked.
Yes.
And then one is like, hey, please make a movie that sets up the Justice League, please. You know?
Yeah.
And I actually like that complete BVS.
I did too, yeah.
But it's kind of a mess too, that movie. And then like Justice League's a real mess. And Suicide Squad had nothing to do with setting up Justice League. So
right.
There's just no build-up.
There isn't. There wasn't any, and that's what that movie has to be. That has to be the complete or not conclusion, but climax of everything that we've been waiting for, essentially.
Yeah, you can't have a climax without any build-up. You just can't.
You can't, and I don't know. Like, did Wonder Woman? I forget. Did Wonder Woman come out before Justice League? I believe it did, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
But that didn't really build to that either. I mean,
No.
like, it at least made her character more likable.
And I think it brought people to Justice League because they had hope because Wonder Woman was good.
But then they just sexualized Wonder Woman in that, though. Mm-hmm. Like, well, Flash falls on her boobs and, like, all this
Right.
stuff. And, like, Amazonians are in bikinis. And, like, it's just a real mess. And part of that, I don't want to take a dump all over Joss Whedon. I know some people really like him. Mm-hmm. He does not write the best female characters. I mean, he did kind of in Buffy, like, did a decent job, but, like, since then, it's, like, a lot of it's just, like, it just seems like he's really horny whenever he, like, you know, does a movie. And whereas Zack Snyder's horny for action.
Oh,
he's just like, oh, CGI. And his cinematography is actually great, Zack Snyder.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
Now, you could really take apart the writing sometimes.
You definitely could.
With Zack Snyder,
like
for
plot lines
sure.
and stuff?
Yeah, but his cinematography's that, I think it's a shame that he can't find this balance in that universe at all, between, like, having both be good. And they have with a couple of movies, but it's been, like, I mean, the only one that everyone really liked was Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And I like BVS Ultimate a lot. There's a lot of people who still didn't. I liked Man of Steel.
I like Man of Steel.
A lot of people didn't. So it's just, it's rough, and yeah, you can't, like, please everybody. Not everybody's gonna like your thing, but it does say something that half of your audience a lot of time doesn't like what you make.
Right.
That's kind of a difference, you know? There's a difference there.
And that's why I think it was good that he stepped back. It was bad under the circumstances, but it was good that he stepped
with
back.
what happened with his daughter.
Right.
And for people who don't remember, Zack Snyder's daughter passed away. She had committed suicide.
Right.
And so he left. At first, he tried to keep working through it, you know? Probably, I mean, I don't know if this is the reason, but I would assume you probably wouldn't want to be, like, alone, you know,
Right.
after something like that. So he kept working and did act professionally in that manner, but, you know, his family comes first, and at a certain point, he just had to stop.
Yeah.
And it's probably good for him that he did. Also good for him because, like, he probably didn't need all of the criticism he got for it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
For that universe. It's just kind of, like, unnecessary. I don't know. So he left. Joss Whedon kind of took over with Justice League, made this hybrid kind of bastardized version of like him and Zack Snyder together. It's like the worst of both worlds.
It really was. Yeah.
And now it's just kind of like, I don't know. Now it's just kind of whoever, is directing.
Right.
It doesn't really seem like there's like one head vision anymore.
No, and
maybe that's better.
It can be better. Like, I think the Scorsese Joker, which we talked about briefly on the channel too, has potential to be really cool. Like, I like Joaquin Phoenix a lot. I think he's a really good actor. I think there's potential there. But I'm still concerned because there just doesn't feel, like you said, maybe there doesn't need to be, but that was the plan at first. So it just loses the audience to have a plan, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
like,
you need a plan.
You need a plan. And if that means you have a bunch of solo movies that eventually lead up to a big movie, if that means you just want to have a cool universe with a bunch of unique stories with unique characters, cool, that's fine. But you need to kind of have that established. You can't keep changing your mind midway through this universe, and then people don't know what's going on. And it's, well, I'm going to go see Wonder Woman. I mean, I don't know what the plot's about, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's go see it.
Well, also at a certain point, people don't care.
Exactly, and that's
like,
true too.
Which is an issue, because like I would say there's very few DC movies coming out I care about for me now. And like I think if you go back and watch the we did like a Batman v Superman like review kind of way back. It's one of our more watched videos, despite only being in 480p even.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was pretty like, I praised that movie quite a bit for like certain things that it did.
Yeah.
And there was things it did I didn't like, but I think I gave it a lot of credit. It's just over time, like they just keep making these blunders, and I just stopped caring as much. Can you do one with that? Yeah, with the BBS.
Yeah.
Because like now that Aquaman came out, it's part that I don't care about Aquaman, another part that it didn't look unique to me, like from the marketing, and then part that like I just don't care about the DCEU anymore, that I just didn't feel compelled to see it. I'd like to see Shazam.
Yes.
Because that looked really fun. But more of the reason I want to see Shazam is because he's a character that's been neglected in most forms of DC media since they acquired him back when he was Captain Marvel.
Right.
Like, he's had various comic series that have all gotten canned.
Yes.
He's had, like, appearances in, I think he had, like, I'm trying to remember, he appeared in the DC animated universe at some point. Like, the old animated universe. It might have been Justice League Unlimited. But
ooh, that sounds right. Yeah.
I think it was really brief, and I'd have to look it up, but he didn't really even get love in that. He did get Superman / Shazam fighting the Black Adam
oh, yes.
mini film, which was good.
That was a good movie.
It was really fun, but it was like 40 minutes or so. So very short. I guess what I'm getting at is like that character has like appeared over and over again, and certain people love him. A lot of the times he just doesn't sell, even though he's cool. Like, he's unique. He's a kid who has like the powers of these gods, who yells Shazam, turns into an adult. He's still a kid, but he's an adult who like basically is like magic Superman.
Yes.
He's not as powerful as Superman, but he uses magic, which is why he can also hold his own against Superman to a degree, because that's one of Superman's weaknesses. He's extremely powerful. He has super speed, not on the level of the Flash, but he has super speed. Super strength, can fly, shoot lightning, all this stuff. Really interesting. No one's ever really cared.
No one.
So it's nice to see a character like that. You know, it's kind of like Aquaman. Like, a character that, like, no one ever really wrote home about getting screen time. The only difference is I've seen Aquaman in 100 different animated interpretations.
Yes.
So, like, for me, it's like this is the first time I'm getting to really see much of Shazam. You know?
Right.
So that's interesting to me.
And the thing is that's on the directors and the people making these films, as I guess kind of bad it is to say, but it's on them to make you interested in these characters. Because like look at characters like what Marvel did, and it's easy just to go back to Marvel because it's an easy comparison. They're obviously just rivals.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you look at like what they did with a lot of characters that, I mean, really no one cared about.
No one cared about Guardians of the Galaxy.
No one cared about them. And they're a lot of people's favorite characters in the MCU
yeah,
now.
And there's going to be one guy who said, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's great. I think it's cool. You know, like, that's like me with Shazam. I love Shazam.
Right.
Nobody else cares about him.
No one cares.
But, like, it just sucks that certain characters like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, I feel like will always be sellers.
Yes.
For comics, for movies, for whatever. Spider-Man will always be a seller. Iron Man will be probably going forward, but wasn't originally. Marvel was able to take characters like the Guardians, or even like actually Iron Man and Captain America, which people still liked them, but they didn't really matter that much to people, outside of just the Avengers, you know, as a group, and made people care about them. And so like my hope with like Shazam is that they will do that for me. I mean, I already care about Shazam, but like I just haven't seen him much, so that's unique to me. It's the same with Wonder Woman. Like the first Wonder Woman was very unique, I thought, and it didn't completely break the mold or anything.
No,
but it was interesting how it was able to portray a female superhero. Not that there was zero sexualization, but like without her just being a sex object.
Right.
Because a lot of times, like, not to sound feminist, you know, because I know that kind of stuff can be like a turnoff to people listening, but like a lot of times there are like in film, like these female superheroes are portrayed very differently from the male ones. So it was just interesting to see Wonder Woman just be a character.
Yes.
You know, like that's what I liked about it, and she was likable. Like she just seemed like a person. That's kind of what I want. And when it's as dope as some of the stuff can be, when it comes back to almost caricature level stuff, like with Justice League, like, tell me, Batman, do you bleed? Just like stupid stuff like that. It's like, it's not a character. It's just a, I don't know, product. And I don't want to feel like these movies are just products.
And that's where the concern is. Yeah, I mean, they've got other stuff coming out besides Shazam 2, like Birds of Prey is a big one
that could
announced,
be great,
and that could be sweet because Margot Robbie's coming back. That's really exciting. I think she's brilliant. I guess I'm just concerned with, I guess, it just feels like it's a ticking time bomb, and they're waiting for one more bad movie. And then once that bad movie happens, it's all over. They're done with DC movies. And that's
I don't know if they're done with DC movies or if they're just done with the DCEU.
And I guess that's what I mean. Is like they're done with that universe. They're done with building this. They're like, this was the last bomb we could tolerate. We're done. That's it. We can't have any more bad movies.
It's just insane that the bombs are all their fault.
Yes, they are.
Like,
they're all their fault.
I feel like at this point, it's not on the consumer. Like, So, yes, there's been a lot of bad things. Now, if a movie comes out, right, and it's super high reviewed, and it's high reviewed by fans, and then people still don't go see it, that's kind of on the consumer.
Right.
Because then it's like, you know, you saw that everyone loved this thing, and you're like, no, all those other things sucked, so I'm not going to engage in this thing that's good. Like, let's say that Scorsese Joker. If it was great, but something like Justice League, BVS, and Man of Steel made people not want to see it, that sucks. I kind of get it, but like also if it was considered great by everybody, that is on you. That you need to go. You chose not to see it.
Yeah,
that is on you. That's just kind of a bad attitude. But there's no reason for the consumer to pay to go to these day one now. There's like none.
There's not, no.
Because like it's just been such an up and down like track record, and like they have no idea what's going on. Can you blame them for being cautious?
No, and that's what sucks. This is not a guaranteed I need to go see this. It's more of like I check Rotten Tomatoes almost fearfully every time that these movies come out.
like
what is this gonna do?
Like a hostage situation.
Yeah, like what is this gonna? Is this gonna completely ruin all of these potential movies if I just look at this and I see a 45%? You know, and it's just, and people look at that and they're like, well, it's another bad DC movie. I'll just wait for Captain Marvel to come out, and that's how I'll get my superhero fix. And it's just, I don't know. We're in a golden age of superheroes, and for DC I mean, they're my favorite. I like DC more than Marvel.
Yeah.
For them to not be taking advantage of this as much as I think they should be, outside of like really the Dark Knight trilogy, you know, and then getting into like the DCEU, it's really disappointing, to be honest, because there's just so much potential and so many stories that they could just pull from the comics.
Yeah.
And make it easy on yourselves.
Well, it's funny because their visual medium in some way has been downhill since the Dark Knight.
Yes.
And what I mean is that was kind of the pinnacle in a lot of ways. And since then, they've just had problems in a lot of departments. Even Rises with the death, you know, with his death, and needing to swap him out, focus only on Bane, and then needing to end that trilogy still in a satisfying way. And I think the ending of that trilogy is satisfying.
It is, for sure.
I think the first act of trying to bring you back into it after, you know, Heath Ledger's suicide, acting like Batman hid in his house for 8 years, like all this stuff, it just feels out of character and kind of weird. So you could tell even there that it was like, oh man, this thing in the real world affected our writing. We'll do our best, and it was still very good. But then you had things like Man of Steel, where it's like, I enjoyed it, but there's problems. Things like BVS, I enjoyed it, but there's problems. Like, all of a sudden, there was always problems again. Wonder Woman is the only thing I can think of live action since The Dark Knight that hasn't had problems, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could also nitpick it.
But
like,
I mean,
the villain wasn't the best.
Right.
But it didn't really have problems.
No, it was an overarching, solid movie.
And
from beginning
success.
to end. Yes.
Yeah. And even their animated movies have had problems.
Fallen off big time.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about that earlier today. I mean, really, the DCEU, which was DC's kind of, I don't want to, I mean, their fallback almost when it comes to movies, because they just dominated that compared to Marvel.
Yeah.
And Marvel kind of caught up with that too.
Yeah,
Like,
Marvel's shows are probably better regarded, if not as well regarded.
Yes.
I mean, like, the CW verse is still doing well.
Yes.
But that is doing well without a lot of problems, although it still has problems because of the cringe writing and dialogue
Right.
that turns a lot of people off that aren't teenagers.
The somewhat days of our lives.
Yeah. And people don't like that. Or like how characters become less interesting over time. Like, the fact that Arrow is less interesting now than he was in season 2 is bad.
It's really bad.
Like,
yeah.
and that's not even Stephen Amell's fault. That's
No.
the fault of the writing.
I love Stephen Amell.
And
it's not...
it's just weird. And I was thinking the last great animated movie I could think of without any problems at all was probably because it was a direct adaptation, and it was Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2.
Brilliant. Yeah.
But can you think of many since then that haven't had some issues, at least in writing or in how they're portrayed, or they just fall off? Like, Killing Joke could have been amazing.
Could have been.
Kind of fell off. I was trying to think, the other one, Gotham by Gaslight, wasn't received well. You enjoyed it, but
It was okay.
It wasn't received well, and
Yeah.
it strayed from the comic, which is too bad. Bad Blood, no one really cared.
Yeah, I didn't care. It was okay, but
The
it
Death
wasn't
of
great.
Superman is a worst version of, like, Superman Doomsday.
Ugh.
So, like, it doesn't matter. And even if these were good, it's a very standardized, no one cares art style.
Yes.
And that's not to be mean to the artist. It's not that the art is bad. It's just that it's not unique.
No.
Like, they all look the same now. And they don't look the same in that unique Bruce Timm style. Because the Bruce Timm style was unique from comics and unique from other animation at the time. So to standardize the DCAU with Bruce Timm's style was a good thing. To standardize with a style that doesn't look unique from anything else is a problem.
Agreed.
It's not that you can't use that art style. That artist makes good art. Like, I'm assuming it's like one or two main people that are doing that penciling or
Right.
on the computer penciling of those characters when I say that. Or that art team does good art. You could have them on certain movies. You can't have them on everything. It's
No.
boring.
You need to change it up, and that's one of the big problems too. Is they've had really since they started. I don't know when that really started. Like the new DCAU, like the Batman vs. Robin.
It's weird because it kind of started around. I mean, like Batman vs. Robin and those were earlier, but I think Dark Knight Returns, it stuck enough to its own art style, like Miller's,
Yes.
but was also towards that standardized to clean it up. And that was a fine mix, but since then it started to just become the standardized.
Yes, yeah. It's
'Cause
just like a
they're-
template that it almost feels like they're copy and pasting, and then
Yeah.
just bringing in. The thing is too, the voice actors are good, but they're just bringing in the same voice actors. We're
Yep.
getting like it feels like a very similar story.
Well, it's a watered down DCAU.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
That's all it is.
and it's just uninspiring. I
Like,
guess.
the fact that they can keep releasing, like, Batman the Animated Series, like, over and over again on, like, DVD. Now it got, like, Blu-ray releases. It's gotten 2 Blu-ray releases. The
Yes.
fact that it still sells. The fact that people are still buying Justice League on Blu-ray and, like, want to own that or want to stream it. That shows you something.
Right.
That shows you that they're more interested in that stuff. Like, you need to go back to that. And I don't know if the movies, if the shows, I don't know if they will or not. The Batman comic, in my opinion, has fallen off hard. I know that's a separate, discussion, but, like, even the comics versions of some of these characters have gone downhill.
Yes.
And I just kind of wonder what's going to happen with them. Because, like, Batman comics had a really strong event. It was like, the Batman Who Laughs and all of these, like, Dark Knight Metal ones,
Yes,
and you
yep.
read some of them. That was really strong. But that was a side event going on apart from the main title. It's like these main titles, people still buy them, but there's, like, a lot of not waning interest, but like less creativity lately from the DC brand in every variant, that I just want to see them go back to when they were at their peak in each one, because it was so damn good.
Yes.
It was so good. It was incredible. And I just want that back.
That's what, and this might not be fair to say, but I felt like it was more intelligent writing. I guess it was more deeper. I guess if that makes sense. Like, it felt like it was not surface level writing. It was very, instead of just having like bad guy, Batman gets kidnapped, you need to go get him, or it just it felt more like there was deeper pressing issues.
Yeah,
and, like,
there was.
It just doesn't feel like there's anything deep, or there's anything like...
Well, do you remember Justice League Unlimited tackled, like, political issues even?
Yes.
And, like, not in a bad way. Not like, oh, hey, everybody, look at the caricature of Trump. Which everything now that tries to be political, it either needs to bring up Trump and, like, associate that conservatism with the ideal of alt-right.
Yes.
Or it needs to, like, go into, like, here's the problem with the far left. It, like, doesn't talk about anything else.
No.
And JLU was talking about things like power and abuse of power and, like, could we trust Superman? Like, but it did it well, like, unlike the DCEU. Like, because they had that whole arc with, like, Amanda Waller and everything, and, like, can we really, like, let this guy and, like, let the Justice League... Like, they have a freaking super weapon up there. Like, do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
It was like, you have a gun on the Watchtower. Like, and people were afraid of them.
It was kind of like the Civil War idea,
Yeah.
where, like, you need to be controlled a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was good. There was sexual tension between characters, like things like how will these relationships develop, like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl,
Batman and Wonder Woman.
Batman and Wonder Woman, yeah, like where will this go? And you cared about it because they felt like real people.
Yes.
Which, by the way, if you can make cartoon drawings of people feel more like real people, then you can make real people on a fucking movie screen feel like real people. That's a problem with your writing.
Yeah. Big problem.
Because that's what it was. The DCEU felt more like real people than the DCEU does.
And that's why we still watch it today.
Yeah, it has heart.
That's the big thing. That's what I was like. It has heart. It has something behind it. People really cared about this.
Yeah.
Now it just feels like we're getting a copy and paste of just, I don't know, very basic stories.
Yeah.
That just aren't inspired. It's
And
fine.
really, they're just shadows of, like, the good comic versions of them.
Yes.
With a few exceptions, like Wonder Woman.
Yes, exactly.
But
there's some good ones.
Even the Wonder Woman story, as great as it is, it was told before in comic and, you know, cartoon variants.
Right.
So it's like we're just not seeing that originality or that heart anymore in a lot of these. Gal Gadot, we did, but a lot of these actors and actresses, we don't see it in.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's as much their fault as it is the writing. I would assume it's more the writing because they're all capable actors.
Right.
But it is what it is, you know. That's the product that's been coming out, and that's why people don't care.
No.
And it sucks.
It does suck because they're our favorite characters, and it's just not working.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I guess it comes down to seeing with Shazam, Birds of Prey, stuff like that. But I mean, if they're gonna change it, they need to really get on a hot streak.
Yeah,
here,
it happens. It needs to happen.
Yeah, because it's been...
Well, you hit a point like Transformers. I don't want to talk about this much longer because we've gone on so long, so I only have one more thing to say.
Yeah. You
hit a point like Transformers where I still think to an extent it's both people's fault. It's the producing team, you know, like it's the movie studio and the consumer, because the consumer keeps paying over and over hoping that it's going to get better. This is coming from someone who, by the way, enjoys the first 4 Transformers because I enjoy the trash of it. Like, I enjoy the popcorn, like, people blowing up, Mark Wahlberg being like, Optimus, you know, all that crap. But, like, people keep paying for garbage over and over, hoping it's going to be good. And then by the time you make something good, they don't want to give you their money anymore. And to an extent, yes, that can be the consumer's fault too, because you shouldn't have kept giving them chances over and over again. You should have waited at a certain point and seen, how is this received? What does this look like? You know, versus like day one, whatever, it's the 10th time, it'll be better. Yeah, you should have waited. That's kind of on you too. It's also on the movie studio to make a good product. And at a certain point, you lose consumer confidence. And Bumblebee came out and it did fine in America. It's going to do way better in Asia. But it's a way better Transformers movie than most of them they've made, if not all of them. No one really cares. And to an extent, yeah, that's the consumer's fault. They kept paying for crap. They kept going to see it. Then when something good came out, they saw the reviews, didn't care anyway. Like, which is a closed-minded approach. However, can you blame them? Because they kept giving you money for fecal matter and being told they're being served, a meal.
Right. Over and over again.
Yeah. And so at a certain point, they just don't care, and it doesn't matter why they don't care. They just don't. So, I don't know. Maybe Aquaman shows that that's not totally true, though, because of how much money it's made.
Right.
Or maybe it just shows you need to have really strong marketing. I don't know. But I do think that as a branching thing, fewer people care about the universe of the DCEU and care more about individual entries now, which is not what they wanted. They wanted MCU level, people go see everything. And they did not get that.
No.
So I'm not sure how they salvage that.
It's almost just harder now for them. They need to individually sell each film, and it just can't have the name DC on it. Where Marvel, it's Marvel movie, I'm going to see it, so I know what's going on in the MCU. So when I go see an Avengers movie, I know what all happened.
Yeah, because I care about what happens to Ant-Man because it affects what happened to Tony Stark or something like that. Yeah.
Because it could affect
or at the very least, I need to read a summary of that movie if I don't want to see it.
So that way I know. Exactly. Yeah. So you're caught up.
And half of the DC movies, you could skip them.
You can.
You wouldn't need them. And,
you don't need Man of Steel.
When they're written so differently, Aquaman's the guy who says, my man, all the time in Justice League, and then he's a totally different guy in Aquaman. That's weird, too, and you could have just skipped Justice League. So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to have to edit this way down because we talked so much about it. But, it's just frustrating and complicated, and I don't know how they fix it. I really want them to, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. Anyway, guys, let us know in the comments what you think about this. Are you excited for more DC movies? Did you never care? Are you starting to care after seeing something like Aquaman? We're actually interested in what your opinions are, because these are kind of where we're at, but, we care about these characters and want other people to, and want them to be represented well, so let's hope that happens. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.